I caught my 29-year-old wife in bed with my gardener, in my house. On the same day, she transferred every dollar from our joint account into his name. And what she said when she saw me standing in that doorway was somehow worse than the cheating. But the real twist, 24 hours later, she was on her knees, begging me not to destroy her life. Stay with me, because this story is not just about betrayal. It is about what happens when a carefully constructed plan falls apart, not because someone exposed it, but because the people inside it never trusted each other to begin with. Welcome to Karma Chronicles, where we bring you the most emotional, raw, and real stories of betrayal, survival, and the kind of justice that makes you exhale for the first time in a very long while. If you believe that loyalty matters, that the people who weaponize your trust and drain your accounts and plan your replacement while you are working to provide for them deserve every consequence that finds them, hit that like button right now. Subscribe, turn on notifications. We are here every single week. Today's story comes from a real man. A man who worked in the most dangerous, isolated conditions imaginable to give his families a beautiful life, and came home one unexpected afternoon to discover exactly what that life had been funding. Names have been changed, but what happened, every single word of it, is real. Settle in, this one hits differently. I am 54 years old. I work offshore, oil rigs, the kind of work that most people only see in photographs or disaster documentaries. Massive steel structures anchored in the middle of open ocean, surrounded by water in every direction, where the weather is always a variable and the stakes are always high. 2 weeks at sea, 2 weeks at home. That is my life. That has been my life for over 2 decades. Dangerous work, relentless work, the kind of work that asks everything from your body and your nerves and your willingness to be away from the people you love for months out of every year. But it pays well, and everything I earned went to my family. My wife had a taste for beautiful things, not extravagant in a demanding way, at least not if she loved nice cars, weekend getaways, a home that looked curated rather than merely lived in. She had particular opinions about the garden, the landscaping, the seasonal plantings, the maintenance of the grounds that surrounded the house I had paid for. And when she told me we should hire a gardener, I agreed without hesitation. He was in his mid-20s, polite, quiet, the kind of young man who makes eye contact and says, "Yes, sir," and gets the work done without being told twice. I liked him. I actually liked him. I shook his hand and showed him around the property and thought, good, someone I can trust to keep things running when I'm not here. What I did not know was that I had just hired my own replacement. For 18 months, while I was fighting storms in the middle of the ocean, while I was wearing safety equipment and working overnight shifts and counting down the days until I could come home, he was sleeping in my bed, and my wife was planning her exit. Their arrangement was not impulsive. It was not a moment of weakness or a mistake made in a single unguarded afternoon. It was sustained, deliberate. 18 months of coordination and deception, and the particular, patient cruelty of people who have decided what they want and are simply waiting for the right moment to take it. I did not see any of it, because I was 2,000 miles away on a steel platform surrounded by open water, working to fund the life they were sharing. I only found out because of one canceled flight. My offshore rotation ended on schedule. The flight back to the platform was booked, confirmed, ready. And then, last minute, no warning, it was canceled. Equipment issue, rescheduled for the following week, which meant I had an unexpected week at home. I drove back to the house smiling, thinking about surprising my wife, thinking about seeing my son's face when he realized Dad was home early, thinking about all the small, ordinary, irreplaceable moments of being present that offshore work steals from you month after month. I pulled into the driveway. The house looked perfect, as always. The garden was immaculate. The cars were in their places. I let myself in quietly, intending to be a surprise. And then I heard laughter coming from my bedroom. Soft at first, then unmistakable. I stood in the hallway for a moment, that specific, terrible moment when your mind is still desperately generating innocent explanations while your body already knows. I opened the bedroom door, and time stopped. There they were, in my bed, in my house, in the life I had spent 20 years of dangerous, exhausting, away-from-home work to build. She didn't scream when she saw me. She didn't cry. She didn't scramble for words or reach for an explanation. She looked annoyed, the way you look when someone interrupts something you were in the middle of. And then she said the words that I will carry for the rest of my life, not because they hurt the most, but because they revealed the most. You weren't supposed to be here. Not "I'm sorry," not "this isn't what it looks like," not even the dignity of a lie. Just, you weren't supposed to be here. The gardener looked at me. In my house, in the home I had paid for, in the bedroom I had furnished, on the property I had maintained from 2,000 miles away with every check I had ever written. And he said, "You should leave. I want you to sit with that for a moment." A man I had hired, a man I had welcomed onto my property, a man I had trusted to care for the things I valued while I was away caring for them financially, told me I should leave, and my wife agreed with him. She sided with him, against me, in my own home. On a day when I had driven there with nothing in my heart but the uncomplicated joy of coming home early, I was pushed out of my own bedroom, out of my own house, treated as if I were the intruder in a situation I had not created, had not chosen, and had not been given a single moment's warning about. I left, not because I was afraid of him, not because I had no right to be there, but because I was processing something too large to fight through in that moment. Because something in me recognized that the right response to this was not happening in that bedroom on that afternoon. I drove to a hotel, and that night, sitting alone in a room that smelled like industrial cleaner and recycled air, I opened my banking application. And that is when I understood that what I had walked into was not just an affair, it was a plan. Our joint account was empty, not partially withdrawn, not reduced, empty. Every dollar, every cent accumulated across months of offshore rotations, of dangerous work, of being away from my family so that my family could thrive, was gone, transferred into his account. That day, I sat with my phone in my hands and I reconstructed it slowly, piece by piece, the way you reconstruct something after an explosion, trying to understand the shape of what existed before the detonation. They had tickets, both of them, booked on an evening flight, bags already packed and waiting. They were going to run, away from the country, away from the consequences, away from me, using my money as their foundation for whatever came next. The moment in the bedroom when I arrived, that was their final celebration. Their last afternoon in the house before they disappeared into a future they had spent 18 months engineering on the foundation of my labor. But here is where the story took a turn that neither of them had planned for, because he had a plan of his own. And she was not part of it. He never loved her. I want to be absolutely clear about that, not to be cruel, but because it is the fact that everything else pivots on. He did not love her. He was not drawn to her by genuine feeling or authentic connection or any of the things that might have made this betrayal complicated to judge. He loved access to my house, my lifestyle, my account balance, the particular comfort and security that 20 years of dangerous offshore work had built. He wanted to step into that without building anything himself. And she had been his vehicle. The moment the money cleared, he was gone, not with her, with another woman, younger, single. Someone with no complicated history, no estranged husband, no legal entanglements. Someone simpler. He took the money and he left. And my wife, the woman who had sided with him in my own bedroom less than 24 hours earlier, who had looked at me with annoyance when I came home unexpectedly, who had spent 18 months planning a future that was built entirely on my sacrifice, was left behind. No money, no lover, no plan, just the house. And the reckoning that was coming. The following evening, there was a knock at my hotel room door. I opened it. She stood in the hallway looking like someone who had been through something significant in a very short period of time. Hair disheveled, makeup long gone, eyes red and swollen from crying that had clearly been going on for hours. She was shaking, and then she did something I had genuinely never anticipated. She dropped to her knees, right there, in a hotel corridor on the carpet outside my door. "Please," she said, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I made a mistake. We can fix this, please." I looked at her for a long time. Fix this. 18 months is not a mistake. A mistake is a moment, a single unguarded, regretted moment. 18 months is a strategy. It is scheduling. It is coordination. It is lying to someone's face on a weekly basis while they are working dangerous jobs in the middle of the ocean so that you can fund the life you are actually living. You do not fix that. But here is the thing she did not understand. The thing that mattered more than anything else she had failed to calculate in her planning. She was not on her knees because she loved me. She was on her knees because her backup plan had collapsed, and she had nowhere else to go. I want to tell you about the specific feeling that settled over me in that hotel corridor. It was not rage. It was not grief, at least not the active consuming kind. It was calm, a deep, clear, absolute calm. The kind that comes after a storm has passed and the air is still, and everything is suddenly very visible. I looked at this woman on her knees in a hotel hallway and I felt something I had not expected to feel in that moment. I felt free, not happy, not vindicated, not triumphant in any way that felt good, just free. And I told her something that I had been turning over in my mind since I opened that banking application the night before. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You gambled me. And you lost." She started to speak, I continued. "The transfers are traceable. Every dollar, the house is in my name. Your messages are saved. Your tickets are documented. You handed me everything I need. And you did it on the same day, which makes it very easy to prove intent." The color left her face. Because she understood, perhaps for the first time since this plan had been put into motion, that what she had done was not simply morally wrong. It was legally actionable. In attempting to escape my life, she had documented her own crime. I had spoken to an attorney the same night I discovered the empty account, not out of vengeance, out of necessity, out of the practical understanding that when someone drains a joint account and boards a flight out of the country, you do not have the luxury of processing your emotions before you protect your legal position. The transfers were flagged. The financial institution was notified. A paper trail existed that was clear, time-stamped, and damning. The house was in my name, solely, completely, irrevocably. Her messages, planning the escape, coordinating the transfer, celebrating the timeline, had been backed up on devices that were legally accessible. She thought she was escaping with my money. What she actually did was hand me a documented, comprehensive case. And he, the gardener who had looked at me in my own bedroom and told me I should leave, had taken the money and disappeared, which meant he was now the subject of a financial fraud, investigation that my attorney filed within 48 hours. The calm terrifies guilty people, not anger, not shouting, not the explosive, predictable response they have mentally prepared for. Calm, because calm means the person across from you has already moved past the emotional reaction and arrived somewhere strategic. And strategic is where the real consequences live. The money was recoverable. Not all of it immediately. These things move through legal channels at their own pace, but traceable, documented, and subject to recovery proceedings that were already in motion. The gardener learned that taking someone else's money across state lines and into another account is not simply a personal matter between people who made choices. It has a name, it has a charge, and it has consequences that follow you regardless of which woman you run to next. My wife, the woman who had spent 18 months planning a future with someone who had never planned her into it, found herself in the particular position of a person who burned every bridge on the assumption that she would not need them. She needed them. She did not have them. And I, the man who had come home smiling with nothing in his heart but the uncomplicated joy of an unexpected week at home, had something I had not expected to walk away from that hotel room with. Clarity about what the last 18 months had actually been, about which relationships in my life were real and which were performances, about what I was willing to carry forward and what I was putting down. Working offshore for 20 years teaches you something fundamental about the relationship between storms and time. Storms are violent, they are loud, they demand your complete attention, they make it impossible to think about anything except surviving the immediate. But they pass, and what remains after a storm is not what the storm created. It is what was always there, revealed by the removal of everything that was not real. She wanted excitement, she got consequences. She wanted freedom, she got exposure. She wanted a new life funded by the one I had built. She got a lesson in what happens when you stake everything on a person who was never invested in you, only in what you could access. And the gardener? He learned that stepping into another man's life does not build your own. That access is not the same as belonging. That the things you take without earning have a way of being taken back. So let me ask you something before you go. If you came home to discover that the person you had worked and sacrificed and given everything for had spent 18 months planning to leave with your money and your replacement, what would you do in that hotel room? Would rage take over, or would you find the calm? Tell me in the comments. Because the people who have faced versions of this, and there are more of them than anyone admits, always have something worth saying. And if someone needs to hear today that betrayal is not the end of the story, share this with them, because sometimes the canceled flight is the best thing that ever happened to you. If this story moved you, if it made your blood heat or your chest tighten or filled you with something fierce and clarifying, like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications. We are here every single week with stories that are raw, real, and unapologetically human. And the next story? Let's just say, this was only the beginning. I will see you there. Don't be late.